going to continue our Bible study in Proverbs. This one here is got a little bit more than what we have been. A lot of Proverbs is just going over a lot of the same concepts over and over again in different ways, and but sometimes it takes all those different ways to get the message across to everybody. So anyway, we're not, God put it that way for a reason, and we're not going to question that. But in chapter 15, it starts out with something a little bit different, and we're probably going to continue doing it the way we usually do. We read about 11, 12 verses, but we read them first out of the King James Version. Dave reads it, and Josie reads it out of the Living Word, or Living Bible, and I read it out of the Amplified Bible. And sometimes it sheds a little bit more light on it or makes it more clear as to what it's saying to us anyway. Helps us, because lots of times we think more from a natural standpoint than we do a spiritual standpoint, and sometimes this helps. So anyway, we're going to start with chapter 15, verse 1, and go through verse 11. Will you start us out, Dave?
Soft answer turneth away wrath, but grievous words stir up anger. The tongue of the wise useth knowledge aright, but the mouth of fools poureth out foolishness. The eyes of the Lord are in every place, beholding the evil and the good. A wholesome tongue is a tree of life, but perverseness therein is a breach in the spirit. A fool despiseth his father's instruction, but he that regardeth reproof is prudent. In the house of the righteous is much treasure, but in the revenues of the wicked is trouble. The lips of the wise disperse knowledge, but the heart of the foolish doeth not so. The sacrifice of the wicked is an abomination to the Lord, but the prayer of the upright is his delight. The way of the wicked is an abomination unto the Lord, but he loveth him that loveth after righteousness. Correction is grievous unto him that forsaketh the way, and he that hateth reproof shall die. Hell and destruction are before the Lord. How much more than the hearts of the children of men?
Okay. Had a lot there, didn't it? Josie, will you read the same ones, verses 1 through 11, please?
A gentle answer turns away wrath, but harsh words cause quarrels. A wise teacher makes learning a joy. A rebellious teacher sprouts foolishness. The Lord is watching over everywhere and keeps his eye on both the evil and the good. Gentle words cause life and health. Griping brings discouragement. Only a fool despises his father's advice. A wise son considers each suggestion. There is treasure in being good, but trouble dogs the wicked. Only the good can give good advice. Rebels can't. The Lord hates the gifts of the wicked, but delights in the prayers of his people. The Lord despises the deeds of the wicked, but loves those who try to be good. If they stop trying, the Lord will punish them. If they rebel against that punishment, they will die. The depths of hell are open to God's knowledge. How much more the hearts of all mankind?
Okay. A soft answer turns away wrath, but grievous words stir up anger. The tongue of the wise utters knowledge rightly, but the mouth of the self-confident fool pours out folly. The eyes of the Lord are in every place, keeping watch upon the evil and the good. A gentle tongue with its healing power is a tree of life, but willful contrariness in it breaks down the spirit. A fool despises his father's instruction and correction, but he who regards reproof acquires prudence. In the house of the uncompromisingly righteous is great priceless treasure, but with the income of the wicked is trouble and vexation. The lips of the wise disperse knowledge, sifting it as chaff from the grain. Not so the minds and heart of the self-confident and foolish. The sacrifice of the wicked is an abomination, hateful and exceedingly offensive to the Lord. But the prayer of the upright is his delight. The way of the wicked is an abomination, extremely disgusting and shamefully vile to the Lord. But he loves him who pursues righteousness, moral and spiritual rectitude in every area and relation. There is severe discipline for him who forsakes God's way, and he who hates reproof will die physically, morally, and spiritually. Sheol, the place of the dead, and Abaddon, the abyss, the final place of the accuser, Satan, are both before the Lord. How much more then the hearts of the children of men? All right, I'm opening it up for comments. Who wants to start?
Well, I know one thing. God today in the New Testament, the New Covenant of Jesus, God is not looking down at everybody, trying to catch anybody sinning and doing this and that, whatever, to punish you or to kill you or to send you to hell or anything like that. And people have gotten this idea from religion that God is out to get them. God is out to punish them. And that's why you hear sometimes that, people will say, well, I'm going to be in hell with my friends. So they're, no one is talking to anybody about the truth. It's all about the devil and going to hell, and that's why you get all this Old Testament stuff, do this, go to hell, or serve God, and all this kind of stuff, and it's depressing.
Yeah, in the natural, we have a lot of misunderstandings about what the Bible is saying. And if I'm understanding it correctly, God has set up some standards. And when we go by those standards, he is free to bless us, because when he set up those standards say that if you act one way, you get blessed. If you act another way, and in acting, I include the thinking too and the attitudes. Anyway, one way, God, his hands are free to bless you. And the other way, his hands are not free to bless you. And sometimes he has to take his hands of protection away from you and allow you to go through some stuff to get your attention and help you change your thinking and maybe get on a better path. Now then the question comes up, well, when I am trying to serve him and bad things will happen, what about that? Well, sometimes he's using us as an example of how we should be no matter what. It's like he loves us no matter what. He doesn't love us because we do right or wrong. He doesn't hate us because we do right or wrong. It's not us he hates when we do wrong. It's the deed that we did that's an abomination to him. And our decision to do it, he does not approve of that. That is true. But because he set up those standards a certain way, then when we make wrong choices, there's things that happen to us. Now, sometimes our wrong choices and the consequences affect somebody who made right choices, and that happens too. So it's a little bit more complicated than just cut and dry, but your chances or your opportunities to have more blessings happens as you do things God's way to the best of your ability. and take correction, because sometimes even when we mean to do well, we still make wrong decisions, and wrong decisions have consequences that are bad, and right decisions have consequences that are good, and and that kind of thing does happen. But God did promise to go with us when our hearts are after Him, even if we make a mistake or something, or even if we get in the wrong place at the wrong time and get in the middle of the consequences of somebody else's mistake. God will turn it around for good for those who love Him. And so, anyway, that's what I got.
That goes back to, the Old Testament, New Testament, We're to believe in the New Testament, which Jesus did save us from all the bad stuff, but people still are carnal, and they believe that they're going to be punished because they're not doing this or that. But whatever we believe is what we get. Because God says, if you believe in me, then you will get good. But if they're believing in the evil part, and then they end up doing evil or whatever, and they believe they are going to get punished, but if all they have to do is say, I don't believe that. And also, God knows our heart, and He knows the influences around us. And I think, like you said, there's a standard that we go by, and it's not just cut and dry that He's going to bang you over the head every time you make a mistake. No, He's not, because he gives us choices, yes. We are a free will person because of Christ now.
And because of Christ, remember Proverbs is in the Old Testament. Because of Christ, it's in the New Testament, it's more of a correction than it is a punishment. And correction can feel like a punishment, but the end results helps us to change our focus on doing things the bad way and change it to doing things God's way. So correction's a little bit different than punishment. And so, but correction can hurt just like punishment, because we don't like to admit it when we're wrong. And then there's other factors that go into that too, like the consequences of what we've done. So there's more to the picture than just one or two things. So we need to keep that in mind. There's other things out there that affect it. And I had never realized until we did this study on chapter 15 that what my mom pounded into my head was so true. God sees all. He sees the good and He sees the bad, and He makes note of it. And you can hide the bad choices that you made from other people, but you'll never hide it from God, because He's able to see everything. He's able to see it. And so I really, really liked that. Plus, that's kind of what the song was about that Chuck wrote. But it also, when He sees everything good and bad, He's also able to understand why you need help and help you when you need it, when you've been trying to do good and bad things happen anyway. And then I like that about that. I have found it to be so true. Dave does this, I noticed. I don't know if he knows he does it, but when people are upset, he talks softer and he talks calmly until they stop acting and talking in an upset manner. And it does. It puts cold water on that fire, because when we're angry, it's like a fire. We are just so mad and we're just out of control. But people who can do that, like Dave does, they help put out those fires and help calm the atmosphere by being gentle with their answer. Because the normal, I say normal loosely, the natural man has a tendency when someone's yelling and screaming to yell and scream back. And the natural man or woman in me does that. But if I control my temper and I control my tongue and I control my attitude and I make myself be calm, cool, and collected and speak in a gentle, soft manner, it calms the whole atmosphere of whatever's going on in the circumstances. It calms it down. It doesn't add to the fire. It doesn't make it grow worse. So that's right there in the scriptures, and it may be Old Testament, but it's still true. Someone's yelling and screaming at you, you start talking soft, and all of a sudden they get more quiet so they can hear what you're saying. Their curiosity gets the best of them. It calms them down. Anyway, enough said on that. Any more comments on those first 11 verses? All right, let's go to verse 12 through 22. Mr. Dave?
A scorner loveth not one that reproveth him, neither will he go unto the wise. A merry heart maketh a cheerful countenance, but the sorrow of the heart, the spirit is broken. The heart of him that hath understanding seeketh knowledge, but the mouth of the fools feedeth on foolishness. All the days of the afflicted are evil, but he that is of a merry heart hath a continual feast. Better is little with the fear of the Lord than great treasure and trouble therewith. Better is a dinner of herbs where love is than a stalled ox and hatred therewith. A wrathful man stirreth up strife, but he that is slow to anger appeaseth strife. The way of the slothful man is as an hedge of thorns, but the way of the righteous is made plain. A wise son maketh a glad father, but a foolish man despiseth his mother. Folly is joy to him that is destitute of wisdom, but a man of understanding walketh uprightly.
Okay. Do you have 22 as well?
Oh, that's what you said, 22. Without counsel, purposes are disappointed, but in the multitude of counselors they are established.
Okay. All right, Josie.
A mocker stays away from wise men because he hates to be scolded. A happy face means a glad heart. A sad face means a breaking heart. A wise man is hungry for truth, while the mocker feeds on trash. When a man is gloomy, everything seems to go wrong. When he is cheerful, everything seems right. Better a little with reverence for God than great treasure and trouble with it. It is better to eat soup with someone you love than steak with someone you hate. A quick-tempered man starts fights. A cool-tempered man tries to stop them. A lazy fella has trouble all through life. The good man's path is easy. A sensible son gladdens his father. A rebellious son saddens his mother. If a man enjoys folly, something is wrong. A sensible way on the pathways of right. Plans go wrong with too few counselors. Many counselors bring success.
Very good. Okay. A scorner has no love for one who rebukes him. Neither will he go to the wise for counsel. A glad heart makes a cheerful countenance, but by sorrow of heart the spirit is broken. The mind of him who has understanding seeks knowledge, and inquires after and craves it, but the mouth of the self-confident fool feeds on folly. All the days of the desponding and afflicted are made evil by anxious thoughts and forebodings, but he who has a glad heart has a continual feast regardless of the circumstances. Better is little with the reverent, worshipful fear of the Lord than great and rich treasure and trouble with it. Better is a dinner of herbs where love is than a fatted ox and hatred with it. A hot-tempered man stirs up strife, but he who is slow to anger appeases contention. The way of the sluggard is overgrown with thorns. It pricks, lacerates, and entangles him. But the way of the righteous is plain and raised like a highway. A wise son makes a glad father, but a self-confident and foolish man despises his mother and puts her to shame. Folly is pleasure to him who is without heart and sense, but a man of understanding walks uprightly, making straight his course. Where there is no counsel, purposes are frustrated, but with many counselors they are accomplished. Comments?
Well, there's a lot of things in there to describe the way they're thinking and they're feeling and all that kind of stuff. And it all depends on the mind. So whatever's going on the inside gets processed through your brain and comes out of your mouth in your actions. And so there's a lot to learn about that in the New Testament, with Jesus talks about it too. And like Proverbs, it's the one that is talk about all the details. But the reason why all this stuff is going on is because man needs a change of heart in their thinking. And only Jesus can do that. In the law, they had a hard time. Don't do this, do this. Do it this way, or else something's going to happen. But in the New Testament, it's God living on the inside that helps us to do the right thing.
That is true. Josie, you got any comments from this part of the chapter? No. I had one, but I can't think of it right now, so I'm going to look again and see if I find it. Well, I know the verses 16 through 19 kind of reestablish what I've learned over the years. You can watch people and how they do, and when I was growing up, so many people were after money, and they made you jump to the conclusion that money was the answer to everything. Well, money's not good or bad. It's what the person who is using it, whether they're using it for good or bad, and what their attitude is toward it, that makes it appear to be bad. But there was a period of time in my life when I thought, well, why is it there's so many rich people that commit suicide and do all these horrible things? They've got all this money. They can have whatever they want. I don't understand that. Well, it's because they can maybe have all the material things they want, but they haven't really turned their life over completely to the Lord. Maybe not even part of it. And that gives us a joy. Like when Chuck went to Haiti, there were people who walked for miles because they didn't have a ride. They walked for miles to go to those meetings. And he said they didn't complain. They just did it because their heart was after God, and they were hungering and thirsting after righteousness. And you can imagine their feet they hurt. Some of them had shoes, some of them didn't have shoes. You know, they probably had blisters on their feet. Their feet were dusty and dirty, and they were uncomfortable, and it was hot there in Haiti, so much so that Chuck would wake up and would wake up in a sweat bath. His sweat would be so thick it would look like he had been drenched in water, and it was water from his own body. He just sweated up. It was just so hot. But you didn't hear them complain, and then they would be grateful for what they had. And it's like the joy of the Lord. It was more pleasant to be around them in their poverty than it was to be around the rich people with all their fancy food and everything when they had such a terrible attitude and a terrible lifestyle and a terrible behavior. It was kind of a dog-eat-dog, dollar signs in their eyes, trying to, kind of like Monopoly. Somebody's trying to take over all the property, and somebody's trying to get all the money. And, that doesn't make you happy. Greed does not make you happy. Anyway, I liked that, and I liked how it brought out that anger doesn't get you anywhere. It doesn't get you anywhere. And making money the wrong way for the wrong reasons is not, the wrong reasons and the wrong ways are not nullified by you giving some of that money to God. It's an abomination to him. He wants you to do right and give out of your heart, but he wants you to be doing things the right way to get whatever you're giving, if that makes sense. Anyway, that's what I got out of it. All right, if there's no other comments on that, we'll go to verse 25 and finish out the chapter. Mr. Dave?
Where did I stop?
Oh, I'm sorry. It should be 23. I didn't mean to confuse you. I've got that marked out. I thought we were stopping there, and then I changed my mind and decided we needed to stop after 22, and so 23 is where you need to go. You are correct. Good job.
God is watching.
Yes, he is. And he's going to use you or whoever he needs to correct me when I'm wrong. Okay. I've been corrected. Now it's your turn.
Verse 23. A man hath joy by the answer of his mouth, and a word spoken in due season. How good is it? The way of life is above to the wise, but that he may depart from hell beneath. The Lord will destroy the house of the proud, but he will establish the border of the widow. The thoughts of the wicked are abomination to the Lord, but the words of the pure are pleasant words. He that is greedy of gain troubleth his own house, but he that hateth gifts shall live. The heart of the righteous studieth to answer, but the mouth of the wicked poureth out evil things. The Lord is far from the wicked, but he heareth the prayer of the righteous. The light of the eyes rejoiceth the heart, and a good report maketh the bones fat. The ear that heareth the reproof of life abideth among the wise. He that refuses instruction despises his own soul, but he that heareth reproof getteth understanding. The fear of the Lord is the instruction of wisdom, and before honor is humility.
Praise the Lord. Okay, Josie, 23, please.
Everyone enjoys giving good advice, and how wonderful it is to be able to say the right thing at the right time. The road of the godly leads upward, leaving hell behind. The Lord destroys the possessions of the proud, but cares for widows. The Lord hates the thought of the wicked, but delights in kind words. Dishonest money brings grief to all the family, but hating bribes brings happiness. A good man thinks before he speaks. The evil man pours out his evil words without a thought. The Lord is far from the wicked, but he hears the prayers of the righteous. Pleasant sights and good reports give happiness and health. If you profit from constructive criticism, you will be elected to the wise man's hall of fame. But to reject criticism is to harm yourself and your own best interests. Humility and reverence for the Lord will make you both wise and honored.
Very good. A wise man has joy in making an apt answer, and a word spoken at the right moment, oh, how good that is. The path of the wise leads upward to life, that he may avoid the gloom in the depths of Sheol, or Hades, the place of the dead. The Lord tears down the house of the proud, but he makes secure the boundaries of the consecrated widow. The thoughts of the wicked are shamefully vile and exceedingly offensive to the Lord, but the words of the pure are pleasing words to him. He who is greedy for unjust gain troubles his own household, but he who hates bribes will live. The mind of the uncompromisingly righteous studies how to answer, but the mouth of the wicked pours out evil things. The Lord is far from the wicked, but he hears the prayer of consecratedly righteous, the upright, in right standing with him. The light in the eyes of him whose heart is joyful rejoices the hearts of others, and good news nourishes the bones. The ear that listens to the reproof that leads to or gives life will remain among the wise. He who refuses and ignores instruction and correction despises himself, but he who heeds reproof gets understanding. The reverent and worshipful fear of the Lord brings instruction in wisdom, and humility comes before honor. Any comments?
The verse 28. It sounds like sounds like something like you can tell when you're around people if there's something going on the inside, even without them talking. You know, it's because of the Spirit. You know, sometimes you can tell. Without even, you have this knowing, that there might be a Christian, and then when you do ask them, well, they turn out to be a Christian because of their countenance, and so that's it.
That's good. One of the things I got out of it was those who don't despise and reject correction appreciate the value of it because it helps to make them a better person. And that wisdom that they obtain from that correction is a way to show worshipful respect unto the Lord. And that's kind of what I got out of that one.
I meant when I was talking, I was meaning to verse 30. So I goofed. I said 28, and it was verse 30.
Okay.
Well, 28 goes to show you that, you know, I've heard different people speak, and they just really don't know what they're saying. They don't know that they're cursing. And that's what it says, a good man thinks before he speaks. But the evil man pours out his evil words without a thought. They just blah, 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 you know. Out it comes, and, you know, they don't have any thought about it. I mean, it's there. But those words mean things, you know. They just don't believe it. That's another thing about believing. You know, they just, without a thought, they just, you know, out it comes. And if they'd really think about it, they wouldn't speak it.
That's right. There was a song that came out, I don't know how long ago it was. It's I haven't heard it in a while on the radio, but about words can build you up or words can tear you down. So we need to stop and think, are the words we're about to say going to build somebody up? Are they going to help them be a better person? Or are they going to tear them down and help them be a not so good person? You know, the words can make a difference. So yes, who can tame that little tongue? I don't know, but with God's help, we can. But we got to think first and ask God to help us.
I heard a preacher say, I won't say who it is. He said he was raised, you know, you cuss words, wasn't, you know, he just cussed, and he really had a problem with that after he got, you know, being a preacher and stuff, and he really had to correct his mouth, you know, and it became a habit, you know, just like any other habit, you know, you can. And, of course, you know, he did tame it, you know, and that was great. And he uses that as an example of not being that way, you know. You got to recognize it in yourself and quit it.
God has a way of making you feel uncomfortable once you have turned your life over to Him. When you do things that's not right in His sight, He will make you feel uncomfortable about those things until you finally realize you need to change that. It's like when the day I finally accepted Christ as my personal Savior, I was wearing a miniskirt. In church, no less. You know, I mean, how disrespectful was that? And I didn't even think about it to realize how that was. But when I was standing in the line, because they had everybody that accepted Christ stand in the line and let all the people of the church, as they were leaving, go by and greet them and tell them they were happy for them getting saved and stuff. And as they did that, I found myself tugging on that skirt, just tugging and tugging and tugging. Well, that material wasn't going to give to cover up what I had let show. And so anyway, I finally, before I left the church, realized that God was letting me know that was not appropriate for me to be wearing. I mean, it wouldn't keep me out from going to heaven, but it would affect my influence that could be good and could be a light for the Lord. It would influence others to be against God instead of for God. And so I needed to change my appearance to something more modest. And that's the last day I wore a miniskirt. I did not wear a miniskirt after that, except for there was one miniskirt that looked good with a pair of pants under it. And I wore some pants, and I got in trouble because the church I was going to didn't agree in women wearing pants, even though it was ladies' slacks and no man would be caught dead in it. So I stopped wearing them too because I didn't want to mislead any brothers or sisters. So I started wearing skirts after that. And then years later, I came back to that church, and the ladies were all wearing slacks.
You should go to Guts then.
Pardon?
You should go to Guts then. Church.
Oh,
the
yeah?
Church Guts.
Guts, yeah.
Get my attention what they're wearing.
Oh my goodness. Anyway, well, I think we've covered what I had planned on us covering.
I just want to add a little bit there. After hearing Chuck's message on our identity in Christ, I think that was the best thing for me because I started thinking differently because we can be saved and going along our lives whenever, but when we don't realize who we really are, we have a habit of putting ourselves down. We have a tendency to say things that aren't true. And when we make mistakes and bad decisions, a lot of people have the tendency to tell themselves that they will never do things right. They can never be able to do things right, or I'm always making mistakes, or you know, they tell themselves that they're no good, or they're stupid, or they put themselves down. And because of Chuck's message of identity, our true identity is in Christ, religion wants to keep us fighting with the devil. You'll never make it. Always you hear people, well, I've been battling with the devil this week. And so the whole emphasis on about the devil and the devil made me do it, or sin. We need to be conscious of sin because that'll keep you out of heaven. Well, if we begin to realize that we are not this body, we are not this flesh. Too many people are saying, oh well, it's I'm doing my best, and I'm just this sinner, saved by grace. And
That's an oxymoron.
the language that we're so used to is contrary to God.
Mm-hmm.
And we need to know that the Word tells us that we are like Him. We come from Him. We are spirit in these bodies, and we come from Him. And God knows who we really are. That's why He doesn't look at us and hate us. He hates what the choices that we make, because the choices we make are really because of living in this body, because of emotions and different things. We get into the habit of believing that everything is about this body, the way we feel and the way things happen and all that. But that's not who we really are.
Right.
And we are overcomers,
Yes.
just like Him. So if we begin to learn that we are as He is, so are we in this world, then we can start being overcomers, and we don't have to do those things that the body wants us to do. That everything is based on emotions and feelings, and whether we gotta learn to do things His ways, and it's the Christ in us, hope of glory,
Mm-hmm.
that starts to change us, change our thinking, change the way we see ourselves, and begin to rise above all those feelings and emotions that try to take us in another direction. So I would have to say the message of identity has really done a lot of good for me. It has, I would say that's what we need. We need to know who we really are, because it's about the Spirit of God, and the Word without the Spirit is dead. We can read this Bible till we're blue in the face, but if we don't have the Spirit, if we don't allow the Spirit of God in us, then it's meaningless. There's no connection. And we're just walking around with the knowledge of the Bible, but without the Spirit of God, and we're not moving. We won't be moving forward in Him.
Right.
God wants to take us further and beyond this natural life.
And we can help each other out if we catch one another having the wrong attitude or whatever, just looking at them and saying, that's not who you are, and reminding them who they are in Christ. And we need to be reminded of that ourselves, because we sometimes don't stop and think how we react to something that is a circumstance, and that our reaction makes a mark on people who witness our reaction. So anyway, that was very good. Well, I think we had a pretty good Bible study today. What do you think? It's stuff, a lot of the stuff we already knew, but kind of discussing it and hearing it in different versions kind of made me think of other things I hadn't thought of when I just read it out of one version. So I think that's pretty cool.